Hello guys, welcome back, and today I'm going to be talking about the NHL and them approving of a new Seattle franchise. Now, the NHL Board of Directors voted today on a Seattle franchise, and with that, we got a lot of good information, and we got a lot of good juicy details. Now, as you guys could probably tell already, the Board of Directors, aka NHL owners, ended up voting unanimously yes to a Seattle franchise. Now, it was all the NHL owners in one room in Georgia. They were invited to vote on this Seattle franchise, and all 31 of them voted yes for a Seattle franchise, which means that Seattle will be coming to the NHL. Now, we've seen Seattle make big moves to get an NHL franchise in the last couple of years, but before today, it was really speculation, and they were not officially going to get an NHL team. But with today's recent voting with the NHL Board of Directors, or Governors, we now know that the Seattle franchise is going to become a reality, and in the 2021-2022 season, the NHL Seattle Expansion team will be playing. Now, it was believed that Seattle would be coming into the NHL at the 2020-2021 season. That was the really date that a lot of Seattle fans were really expecting, but we actually do get Seattle franchise a year later, which Seattle still gets their franchise, but it's just a year later than a lot of people expected. Now, a big thing to note is that the expansion draft will be set as June 2021, which will mean that the expansion draft will be then. We know that the Vegas Golden Knights have had their expansion draft in June 2017, so we know that. But Vegas also has something to exempt here. When it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, they do not have to participate in this expansion draft, meaning that they don't have to lose a player in that expansion draft, which is huge for them. That's one thing that they have over the other NHL teams. I think that was one of the clauses that they had going into becoming an NHL team. Now, when it comes to the arena situation, we did get official word that when it comes to the arena, they'll probably have it, or at least they're expected to have the arena ready a full season before the Seattle team comes into fruition. Again, the Seattle team is looking to be set in the 2021 season, and the Seattle NHL group is looking to have that arena done by 2020, which means that that will be huge for the Seattle team, because then they can have that stadium ready a full year before. That means they can be fully prepared for their inaugural season. And the stadium having that expected date of 2020 actually comes into fruition, and it's the reason why the NHL team is opening in the 2021 season. The reason why they're opening in the 2021 season and not the 2020 season is because of the stadium. Now, the stadium is expected to be ready by the 2028 season, but if there was any kind of construction issues or any kind of construction setbacks, that would mean that the stadium might not be ready for that inaugural season. And the NHL group did not want to risk that. They didn't want to have any holdouts. They didn't want to have anything go wrong for their inaugural season. So they just said, fine, we'll just wait a season, which I think is a good move by them because you don't want to risk any stadium setbacks. Now, speaking of the stadium that the Seattle team will play in, it's called the Key Arena at the Seattle Center. Seattle Center being this whole gigantic place, and the Key Arena being one big part of that, and of course the rink being a part of that. The Seattle team will open in that arena, and of course that arena is set to be expected for the 2020 season. At least that's when it's expected to be prepared for. And for that arena, it's getting a $700 million renovation. Big money for that team and for that arena alone. Is going to get a big renovation and should be expected by that 2020 season. But again, in case there's any setbacks, the team was set back a little bit just to 2021. Now, I've already talked about this before a little bit, but the Seattle NHL Association had to pay $650 million to get this expansion team, and that's some more money than some NHL teams are even worth nowadays. So Seattle paid a lot of money to get this NHL expansion team, so they wanted to get it done right, and if that meant pushing the team a year back from where it was supposed to be, I think it might be worth it for them in the long run. When it comes down to it, $650 million is nothing to scoff at, obviously, and they want to make sure they're doing it right, and right now they're taking the necessary precautions to at least be careful with this. Now, the Seattle NHL group also announced a practice center, a state-of-the-art practice center that they will be opening that'll also be ready by the 2020 season. It's looked at, and that practice center, we've seen some pictures of that practice center. It is absolutely gorgeous. So when it comes down to it, Seattle is really going hard for this NHL team and really making sure that it is done right, it is proceeded with caution, and they got all the necessary things when it comes to an NHL arena and an NHL practice facility. They're doing it right, just like Vegas did a few years back. Now, with Seattle coming into the NHL in the 2021 season, they also create a little bit of a problem. With the Pacific Division, if they were to come in, it would be a 9-team division, while the Central Division would have 7 teams. That means that one team in the Pacific Division would have to be pushed into the Central. Now, when it comes to the closest teams amongst the Central Division teams, it would likely be the Calgary Flames, but we know that the Battle of Alberta is too sacred to split it up from divisions, so the NHL would likely want to keep that. But the Arizona Coyotes are the closest team to a lot of these Central Division teams, which means that the Arizona Coyotes would likely be the team to be left out. And Gary Bettman actually announced on the broadcast of the Seattle expansion that the Arizona Coyotes would officially move to the Central Division in the 2021 season. And that sparks a lot of things. It really creates something of a mixture, because the Coyotes in the last few years, yes, they have not been the greatest, but they've slowly been developing some rivalries in the Pacific Division. And while the Coyotes don't really have an official rival, I'd say, moving them in the Central Division is not going to do them any favors, and they'll have to create some more rivalries and some new ones in the Central Division, which I don't think does them any favors, and I think creates a little bit more problems for them, unless they were to move to Houston, which might just end up happening. So while Seattle coming in is great and dandy for that city, it means that the Arizona Coyotes likely have to be pushed to the Central Division, which in a perfect world, they would not be in the Central Division. So it really creates somewhat of a problem there, and I think it makes more of an excuse for Gary Bettman to maybe pull the Arizona Coyotes out from under their rug and put them into the Houston city. That will make sense, but of course, this is Gary Bettman, and he'll likely keep that team in Arizona for as long as he possibly can. But when it comes to Seattle, we're about 3 years away from their inaugural season, so in that time, we'll likely get some more details about them, how the arena is shaping up, how that's progressing. We'll likely get info about a name, a jersey, a logo. It'll ultimately be a lot of fun leading up to that expansion draft, of course. By then, we'll likely have most of the details on Seattle and their team in general. But honestly, I'm really happy for Seattle getting this NHL team. They definitely deserve it after the past couple of years. For what they've done and what they've done to get an NHL team, it's been miraculous for how much money they paid, getting a new stadium, getting a new practice facility, and getting that NHL group together and having a hockey fan base already instilled in that city. It makes a lot of sense for Seattle to get an NHL team, and they finally got one, which makes a ton of sense for the NHL and for Seattle. But honestly, I'm going to be really fascinated with what Seattle does, how their franchise really shapes up to be, because they could be a pretty interesting team in my case, because I'm not sure right now where I'm going to have them among my favorite teams, if I'm going to have them in my top 10, if I'm going to have them in my bottom 10. It really does depend on the jersey, it does depend on the colors, the logo, and the name. With Vegas, they're my 3rd favorite team in the NHL, mostly because their look just encapsulated me from day one. We'll see if that happens with Seattle, but in my opinion, they have a ton of potential for names and jerseys. I'm just going to throw that out there. I want the Seattle Kraken. When it comes to Seattle, I'm going to be keeping a big eye on them to see what happens with their franchise leading up to that expansion draft and leading up to their inaugural season. But when it comes down to it, these Seattle fans deserve it the most. The city of Seattle deserves it the most in general, and for anybody here, I'm happy for them the most. But of course, with this situation of Seattle getting approved of an NHL expansion team, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. Do you want this team in Seattle? Are you happy for them? Or do you want a team somewhere else? Do you think it'll be a good idea? And of course, what do you think of all the details that I shared in this video? But if you guys want some more expansion goodness, you can watch this video where I talk about Quebec City and if they deserve an NHL team. But of course, that is going for you guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, tell me down below your thoughts on the Seattle expansion team and possibly about the Arizona Coyotes moving to the Central Division. I'll see you guys in the next video. or stream. Goodbye.